Good evening. Thank you for joining us for our 80th live town hall here in Douglas County. Tonight we are here to listen to you about the future of the fairgrounds. We know many of you have started to hear about the ideas proposed in the first draft of the Fairgrounds Master Plan, and you have feedback for us. That's why we're here tonight. We've outgrown and the fairground space. Okay, I'm going to start trying to speak English properly. We've outgrown the fairground space and have started brainstorming what future renovations could look like. We've engaged local groups of stakeholders to develop a concept, and we're here to get your input on this first draft. Stay tuned to learn about what's planned, ask questions, and provide your feedback. We want to hear as many community perspectives as possible. Commissioner Layton.
Thank you, George. Abe Layton, Douglas County Commissioner, and I have to tell you, this is one of my favorite things in the world. 80 live town halls. I'd like to congratulate our board on accomplishing that, but being able to listen to citizens is our very best thing that we do in Douglas County. We want your input, and listen, if you're part of the Raptors organization, give yourselves a big round of applause. All right. Go Raptors. We love having you guys here. My three kids are here, Ava, Thane, and Bolden, and I will tell you, we spent a lifetime in youth sports on the fields, whether it was, baseball, soccer, all the above, Saturdays, Sundays, a lot of weekend nights. So I will tell you, as a parent of three kids, recreational sports are deeply important to me. I'm also really pleased to be joined by Dean Elliott, the Douglas County Fair Board, Cindy Duckworth from the Douglas County Fair Foundation, Mark Moore from the Douglas County Fair Foundation, Gwyneth Nelson from Douglas County CSU Extension, Tim Hallmark, our Director of Facilities, and Zach Burns, our Fairgrounds Manager. You will not find more dedicated Douglas County citizens than the members of our Fair Board and Fair Foundation. They spend an entire year of time volunteering their hours and their life's energy to serve you in the community, to make sure that our county fair is truly the premier event in Douglas County. But because it's been so successful, we're growing. So we're really looking forward to getting more input from you on how to expand. Commissioner Thomas?
Thank you, Commissioner Layton. Good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you all here, and we're excited to share with you the first draft of the master plan for the future of the fairgrounds. To date, our Douglas County Fair Board and our Douglas County Fair Foundation have provided their insights and input to get us to this point. We've also heard from groups of stakeholders who also use the fairgrounds. Tonight we are debuting this plan formally to the public, and we want to hear from you. If you'd like to follow along, please visit douglas.co.us to view a copy of the proposed master plan online. Thank you for all of you for joining us tonight. And we know that we are not going to get to hear from every single one of you. Staff is in the background. They will have forms that you can take and put feedback on them for us so your voice is heard. Now, if you are online or on the phone, you can email the commissioners. I'll give you the email address that we all use. It's BOCC for Board of County Commissioners at douglas.co.us. I'll say that one more time, BOCC at douglas.co.us. I'd also like to invite you all to put on your calendars the next live town hall that we are going to have on June 27th. That is when we are talking about funding for parks, open spaces, trails, and historic preservation. Roger?
Thank you, Commissioners. We want to get to all of your questions tonight, or as many as we possibly can. As a reminder, to ask a question on the phone, press *3 on your telephone keypad, and you'll be transferred to an operator who will take down some basic information. Once the operator has your information, you can listen to the call until it's your turn. When it is your turn, I'll call your name and ask you to repeat your question for our live audience. To ask a question online, enter it into the dialog box, and I will read it aloud when the time comes. And if you are here in the room, please raise your hand, and we will bring you a microphone so everyone in the room, online, and on the phone can hear your question. Since we'd like to hear from as many people as possible, we'll ask you to limit yourself to just one question, and we'll get to those as soon as we can. Commissioner Teal, back to you.
Thank you, Roger. Appreciate it. Abe, you introduced everybody here on the panel, but we're also being joined by Ashley Hetramanik, who is an associate with Design Workshop, and she's online and on the phone and joining us. And we wanted to start out this evening with a little bit of background. And we'll be getting to your questions and comments, everyone, here shortly. But I want to turn to Zach and Tim from our county staff. And guys, I wonder if you can provide a bit of the context about why we're looking at this master plan this evening. And can we get the master plan graphic up on the big board, please? But yeah, why we're looking at this master plan, why we are looking to make these changes, and who has participated in getting us to this point. Tim, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Over the last 5 years specifically, we've found ourselves having more and more struggles, not only during fair with making room for all of the events and making enough space for people to move about safely, but also with our year-round events. A lot of our facilities kind of almost compete with each other on our grounds, where if this facility is rented, it makes this one unavailable. I know our commissioners get a lot of feedback annually over the lack of availability for the facilities at the fairgrounds for our year-round use. The amount of bookings that we have into the future, I mean, we're typically almost booked out a year in advance, which doesn't allow opportunity for any new events or any opportunity for any community events, or either private or public. So we started talking about those things. We started watching the fact that it wasn't just kind of a 1 or 2 year little spike, that it was being sustained over a long time period. For example, the attendance to fair has grown substantially every year for the last 5 years. The last 2 years have been record-breaking, each one beating the next. We're to the point where we have to find a way to find more space for all of the patrons that come to the fair. I'm sure a lot of you folks have been to our fair and come and found that we have, a lot of parking issues. We have traffic flow issues within the grounds, long lines, trying to get through lines on what would normally be considered a midway, but you're kind of cutting through all the people that are in line for food or beverage or to get into the stands. We have a lot of cross-contamination with what we call front of house versus back of house. So we would consider you folks as patrons being that front of house piece, and then our operations that we're doing and that our fair board folks are doing during our fairs being back of house. A lot of those are crossing over each other, and it gives us a lot of concerns for safety. So we started looking at, well, how can we rearrange and do things different with the current footprint that we occupy now, versus how can the improvements be enhanced or even achieved if we start creeping outside of that footprint. We've had a lot of different iterations through this process, even to get to the point of what we're showing you folks here tonight. Taking over all of the county property, to creeping it back to only taking what's really is needed and makes a good positive impact for the fair as well as our year-round events. And that's what we have here for you folks to look at tonight and comment on tonight. But it's been something that's been looked at and talked about for a lot of years. We've seen the sustained growth and the needs for our facilities. And it kind of drove us to finally get to the point where now we can start working on a master plan and see how we can make things better in the future. Zach, you have anything you'd like to add?
Just a little bit about the current state of the fairgrounds. I think we all have a good idea of what fair looks like at the fairgrounds. But last year, outside of fair, we did over 800 events hosted at the facility. The flexibility of the event venue, along with the affordability of the event venue, make it very sought after. And so, like Tim said, very limited availability for new events. Our event coordinators turn away interested event holders daily. We have a wait list of people waiting for space to open up. And like Tim said, the discouraging part about that is just because we don't have availability does not mean all the spaces are being used. So current state of the fairgrounds is we're very busy and working hard to maximize the availability of the spaces for the community use for events put on by the community and for the community.
Okay, thanks so much, Zach. I also want to hear from the members of the Fair Board and Fair Foundation and what your priorities as your thoughts about the future of the fairgrounds. And Dean, I wonder if we could start with you.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here and share. Safety, as Mr. Hallmark mentioned, is certainly a paramount issue for us. Not only, as Tim mentioned, has our fair grown, the recognition of what the fair is, and our rodeo especially, has grown nationally. And so we're seeing more rodeo contestants with larger rigs. Their trucks and trailers have grown in dimension. That creates ingress and egress issues for us in that back of house area that Mr. Hallmark was talking about, as well as mixing, because of the current layout, our patrons that come get involved and get close to some of the activities that are very fast-paced associated with the rodeo. The second thing that's really important to the Fair Board is making sure that we provide an appropriate environment for all the attendees. We have lots of families that come. That's really important to us that happens. We have families with strollers, and making sure that people can move freely and safely throughout the fairgrounds continues to be a significant concern for the Fair Board, as we're tasked with making sure that we provide a safe learning environment for everybody that attends, so they learn more about our livestock producers and others who sustain that Western heritage and the agricultural underpinnings that are not only a major part of Douglas County, but of rural America altogether. And I'll see if one of my colleagues would like to say a few words as well.
And before we ask Mark and Cindy to chime in, folks who are joining us on the phone, if you do have a question, please, or a comment, please press *3 on your phone pad in order to get into the queue and ask your question or make your comment. Mark, Cindy, you guys are the leaders of the Fair Foundation. Why don't can you give us your perspective, please?
Well, I think we would both echo what Dean said. He really summed up the biggest part of it, which is making sure that the facility has the space that we need for our continued growth in this county and ensuring that we have safety for our attendees. I don't see our fair shrinking, and more importantly, we want it to grow. So I think that would be sort of my comments around it.
Thanks, Cindy. Mark?
I would agree with everything. Safe and functional is the key component. We want to welcome as many people as we possibly can to the fair, but we have to be able to manage those crowds. We need to have parking that's available, and the interaction between people and animals can be pretty hairy at sometimes. So we need to be able to facilitate safety transitions from area to area, the front of house and back of house. So Dean said it very well. So that's all I've got. Go for it.
Now, you all have taken the time to drive all the way down here and be with us on a weeknight, so I think I'm going to do what is most important, which is get questions from you all. Who has a question for our panel? Yeah.
And Commissioner, while you're heading over to there, just a reminder, if you're on the phone, press *3. We have a lot of folks listening, but we don't have many people queued up.
My name is Lynette Ryder, and I've had 2 grandchildren go through the Rapids Youth Soccer fields that are right next to the field house now. I see there's still going to be 2 baseball fields, 2 big soccer fields. What do you propose to do with all those children that are learning those skills?
I think that's the critical question tonight. Who would like to take that? Maybe we'll start with Tim.
Until we get to the point where we have a finalized, approved master plan, then we'll know for a fact what our actual impact are on the current fields, and that'll allow us to start planning for the future of how to make sure that we've got a home for those fields prior to taking those away from the current users. But until we get that, like Commissioner Thomas had said earlier, this is our first draft. We're working on completing that. Then we'll know what the actual true overall impact is so that we can plan for the future.
Great, thanks, Tim. Thank you for that question. Yes, sir.
Hey, Andy Munns. Curious, one, on the foot traffic numbers. I believe you guys. I'm sure we get more people year over year. But curious what the goal is for you guys. If it's, hey, we want to grow revenues for the fair or foot traffic. Either's a perfectly fine goal, but just curious.
Who'd like to take that?
Tim, I wonder if you could give us an idea. What are you seeing for those foot traffic numbers every year at the fair?
So we were just north of 60,000 visitors during our fair, I believe, Zach, right? 65,000 visitors in 2023. We were around 60,000 in 2022. We see those numbers continuing to grow. I don't want to speak on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, but I'll give you what I believe to be true, which is we're much more driven in creating the opportunity and the experience of fair than we are driven for actual revenue. This is something that we try to offer to the citizens of Douglas County. I do not believe that we are revenue driven, but what we have is a growing population where we have more and more people that we need to provide that same opportunity for, and this is going to allow us to do that in the future.
Well, and some of those questions are probably best for us who are on the board. Guys, I grew up in Greeley, Colorado. I don't know how many people have been to Greeley before. I don't know how many people have attended the Independence Stampede, but I grew up playing baseball. I grew up playing football and going to the rodeo every summer. And the Independence Stampede is one of the premier rodeos in the country, as well as in Colorado. I want us to compete against the Greeley Independence Stampede. I think we should be and we could be better than the Independence Stampede. When you talk about growing numbers, I absolutely want to grow numbers. When you talk about growing the revenue goes to what does the fair cost every year? And I am not 100% sure I recall what it cost us to put on the fair last summer. The summer before, it cost $15,000. Not $15,000 per person. For 2 weeks of programming, it cost $15,000. The total cost was over $250,000. But through sponsorships, through revenues at the gate, through foot traffic, it cost us $15,000 of our tax dollars to put on that fair. So growing revenue means that it costs us as taxpayers less to have a fair that, yeah, I would like to get bigger and better every year. Have my colleagues share their ideas.
Thank you, Commissioner Teal. I think the fair is a wonderful way for us to remember the agricultural heritage that make Douglas County what it is today. People came here in the 1880s and the 1870s to ranch, to raise their animals, to have a way of life for their family. And the fair families that we see year after year after year, this is my 8th year as being a county commissioner, and I have seen some of these kids come to me when they were about this tall, and now they're this tall, and I know who they are. And every year they have come back to be part of this Western heritage that I think people in Highlands Ranch and Parker who don't have access to the Western heritage, it's an opportunity for kids to see that way of life. And I think it's an opportunity that it's valuable to me. There's a lot of 4-H kids, and this is their opportunity to do what they want, and it's growing. And I think we need to expand that to meet the needs of that population. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would echo that. We're going to get back to questions, but as one of 3 county commissioners, our job is very simple. The barometer is greatest good for the greatest number. And so we just heard 60,000 citizens coming through our fair every year. You all, I mean, the reason that we're the healthiest county in the state, 3rd healthiest in the country, is because of you, not because of government. We're also the wealthiest county in the state. Again, not because of government, but because of you. So we want to continue to be great and do as well as we can by you all. And so for me, we want to have the best fair in the entire state. We also want to have the best youth sports and recreational sports that we can. So I'll just speak for myself. I'm a both and person. If we can be the best at putting on a county fair and the best at putting on recreational sports, I'm all for it. So I think part of what we need to do is find those appropriate alternatives. Who else has a question out here? Yes, ma'am.
Hi there. My name is Jessica Isaacs, and I have my feet in the door in both arenas. We are a big equestrian family. We own a barn in Parker, and we have taken it over and done a lot with the Hunter Jumper and with youth in that area. I also have two kids, one who went through all sorts of Castle Rock Park and Recs, and my son who started in Park and Recs and has gone to Raptors. My biggest concern, yes, I completely agree we need more for the fairgrounds. But before the fairgrounds does this, we need to look at supplying fields and things for the kids that already use them. I've also seen high school athletics, and a suggestion of mine, I guess more than a question, is we had tournament ball. He's going to get into tournament ball. You build, I know this is a lot to ask, a big facility that has at least four, maybe 6 or 8 baseball fields, because those will be used for softball, for baseball, for kids t-ball, all the way up through the 18U competitive leagues. You put soccer fields, you put football fields, so that these kids still have a place to work and play and learn. Learning doesn't just happen in the classroom. I'm a trustee on a foundation here in Douglas County in Castle Rock. We believe that learning happens on the fields, in coaches, in social aspects. It also happens in the arena, working on horses, learning how to muck poop. It's everywhere. We need to preserve that, but we also need to make sure that these kids have the ability to do that at the same time or before this gets done, so that we don't have a gap. So is there a plan on building other facilities before these would be taken away?
Yeah, and it's
Good question.
I mean, so next month, we're actually right here in the hearing room on June 27th at 6 p.m. That's another Thursday night. We will be having another live town hall specifically talking about parks, open space, trails, and historic preservation. Last year, all of us, the year before last, all of us went to the ballot and we approved a sales tax increment that was originated in 1995 and approved extending that an additional 15 years. And the purpose of that sales tax increment, that if you shop in Douglas County, you pay, is to provide for parks, trails, open space, and parks and rec. And quite frankly, folks, we're working on a master plan for those items that will make use of that revenue stream to talk about what does that plan look like moving forward. I will say, and I don't know if my colleagues will agree with me, we've had several conversations about how that money should be used for. We talk about open space. More open space that we can all use for outdoor recreation, hiking trails. We talk about parks. When we talk about parks, you know what I hear about? I hear about walking trails. I hear about decorative landscape. You know what I don't hear about? I don't hear about young men and women, ladies and gentlemen, in athletic fields just like what you're wearing right now, being given fields to play on. So, for more on that plan and for more feedback, that we'd like to hear from you about those plans. We love hearing. I'm so happy you guys are here today, and I can't wait to hear more of your input. But I really think you need to consider coming back next month on June 27th at 6 p.m. and participating in that town hall as well. And Abe, Roger is frantically trying to get your attention.
Oh,
sir.
I know he is, and it's my segment, but on 80 town halls, I'm going to forego that for a second. And just tell you, ma'am, and everybody in this room, I will never displace your kids on my watch. Okay? Absolutely. And I'll tell you the reason I can do that, it's because I believe in this county and I believe in the leadership up here. We're going to put on an amazing fair like we do every year, but no kids will be moved from these fairgrounds until we have a plan. Now, I want to really make sure and introduce Jared, Jay, and Brian, who are part of leading our Parks Board and our Open Space Board. And what's amazing, George is right. So we have $330 million because of you for Parks and Open Space and Historic Resources over the next 15 years. So it's incumbent upon us to listen to you to identify a plan for Parks and Rec. I'm in District 1, and that's where families spend time, and we need more opportunities for recreational activities for our kids. Because there are so many people here, I'm going to take one more question, and then we'll go to the next segment. Yes, sir.
Hi, thank you. My name is Derek Buriel, and I'm the director of Raptors football. My question is, can any of you answer for me, when was the last time a new field, sports field, was built in Castle Rock? And if you can, what is the population change since that event occurred? Because it's my understanding it was 30 years ago since the last field was built.
So we have a commissioner here from Castle Rock. That might be for you, George.
Yeah, 2013. The MAC, the Miller Activity Center. I saw the eye roll. And listen, I was never a Raptors parent. I was a Dolphin parent. And you look a little familiar, Mike, matter of fact. And Mark, your son and my son, one of your sons, we were on the exact same 6-year-old Dolphin football team. And Sarah, our sons played together. Your husband coached my son's Cougars lacrosse team. And so that's a really good point. When was the last time a field was built in Castle Rock? What are the plans in Castle Rock? Well, I spent 6.5 years on the Castle Rock Town Council. I don't get those emails anymore. So the sad reality is there's probably a joint conversation that we need to start having with the town of Castle Rock about how we're going to work together. Because I will tell you right now, with the few emails I do get, folks, housing starts have slowed down, not stopped, here in Castle Rock. And do you know how your parks get built in Castle Rock? Is through impact fees on new homes that are built. Anybody ever bought a new home here in Castle Rock? Do you guys remember all that paperwork where it talked about the $35,000 that your home costs extra? Part of that went to building new parks. And so that stalled. The Cobblestone Ranch Park that I approved the first phase of was supposed to be 3 phases. The final third phase was going to be 4 baseball diamonds. Housing starts are down. Those baseball diamonds are not being built right now. So sounds to me like your question implies maybe there's a role for the county in building sport fields here in Castle Rock. I think that's an excellent thing to talk about.
Thank you, George. So, sir, nobody can hear you unless you have the mic.
We didn't answer the growth since 2000.
Okay, well, we're not going to...
Part of the question that he answered.
Sir, what we're going to do is have a respectful discussion here. And if you want to talk, I'll come out with the mic. But we have several thousand people online as well. And just to keep us on time, if you want to ask a question, you can get in the queue on the phone by pressing *3. We're going to dive into the details of the proposal. Tim, can you give us an overview of what's in the plan? And specifically, can you address the proposal as it relates to sports fields?
So I think everybody can see on the screen, the current proposed draft master plan has an impact for what we'll call 3 fields, 1 baseball diamond, 1 football/lacrosse field, and then the multi-use fields that are just east of the event center that are used for the younger kids to learn the sport of soccer. That is the only impact on those fields. The others, we did our best to have the minimal impact as we could as we moved to the east. But as you can see on the map, the entire rest of the property were landlocked, so we didn't have options to go different directions other than to the east, which was unfortunate. but that's the current impact. With where we're at right now, I do not foresee this impact getting larger. We'll just have to see how it develops, but I don't think we have any need or desire to make it any larger of an impact on our current athletic fields. As you look at that, everything's kind of laid out, but the things that are affecting our sports fields are buildings A, B, C, and an outdoor arena G. All of those buildings will be utilized for 4-H activities and CSU programming.
That has actually come up in a couple of minutes.
And then all of those will be the barns that will be utilized during fair for those same types of activities, as well as having a covered warm-up arena that allows year-round open riding for the residents of Douglas County. We currently offer that as schedule allows within our indoor arena, but because of the other events that impact that, it's not consistently open. Adding this will allow us to have open riding literally almost 365 days a year, sans the days that we have to close down during our 10-day fair event. But that's the facilities that have moved and grown into the area that are impacting our sports fields. And I know in our next segment, Guinevere from CSU is going to be able to explain to us the positive impact that's going to make for the youth of Douglas County within the 4-H program.
Hang on, guys. Guys, we're going to have time for more questions, more comments from the audience. Let's go through the plan, please.
That's really about all I would have to say as far as the impact that are having the effect on our sports fields. I'll address the gentleman's comment in the audience. As you grow facilities, sir, you're correct. You do have to add parking to support said facilities. So you are correct.
So I'm going to pass it to Commissioner Thomas to get some questions. And I might have the first question. Forgive me for thinking out loud, but I am looking at the 543 lot parking lot adjacent to 194 spaces and 144. Could we not just build recreational soccer and baseball fields where it says 144 and 194 and just do covered parking, multi-level covered parking where it says 543? I mean, we're just trying to focus on common sense here, right?
So adding parking structures, of course, is absolutely an option. What has had us not go down that road as of yet is current market is about $30,000 to $35,000 per parking space to build a covered parking garage.
That's pricey.
That's pricey.
Commissioner Thomas?
So there are people on the line. There's over 1,000. Roger, is there someone on the line with a question?
We do have. Let's hear from Douglas next. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Douglas. I live just east of the fairgrounds, or the first little development over there. Every time there's an event at the fairgrounds, going eastbound from I-25 to Plum Creek, the traffic just backs up like crazy. Any plans at all to mitigate that as far as expanding the road or something, or moving the entrance to the fairgrounds up maybe a couple thousand feet more, because there's a bigger area up there without the traffic backing up?
A little bit. Yeah, there's a little bit of work that's that's being done by the town of Castle Rock right now in partnership with the county that could take some of that pressure off. And that's the Crystal Valley interchange to the south. Right now, those of you who anybody live in Crystal Valley? Because if you do, you're my neighbor. I live in Crystal Valley as well. But that'll be able to take, it would be about 20% of the current traffic that would continue on to your location in the Glover's neighborhood, sir, off the Plum Creek Parkway exit of I-25. It will take virtually 100% of all of the traffic that travels then south to Crystal Valley neighborhood off of the Plum Creek interchange. And then there's about 5 to 10% of the current traffic that has to utilize the Plum Creek neighborhood, the Plum Creek interchange. that goes even further into Bell Mountain Ranch, down even to those neighborhoods in the county that are closer to the Toma Road interchange. So that is probably the biggest infrastructure project that will have that positive effect.
I'll just add that I've been a commissioner now, this is my 8th year, and we talk about the fairgrounds often. We looked for other places where we could move the entire fairgrounds someplace else. And we were not able to find any place in Douglas County that made sense that we could move all of the fairgrounds. But one of the important components is that the fairgrounds is so close to the interstate that it's easy to get off the interstate and get into the fairgrounds as opposed to finding someplace else, somewhere else in the county. Roger, there's an online question.
As Andrew asked, will this plan make more room for those traveling? Will there be more places for RVs and more hookups?
So we've gone back and forth with the talks of trying to have an RV park and amenities at the facility. At the same time, trying to maximize and increase parking. When we put in the amount of space that was needed to allow for that traveling RV traffic, that was when we had a very, very significant impact on the sports fields. RV space takes up a lot of space, so it was either you lose all of your parking and actually go into a deficit compared to where we even are currently, or we lost, honestly, right out of the gate, at least 2 more ball fields would have had to go to allow for RV site amenities.
We have had discussions also about government not competing with the private sector. There's a campground south at the Toma Road interchange. There's also other businesses that we've approved that are south of Castle Rock, where people can come in who are traveling and they can have their horses, they can unload their horses, there's a place for them to stay. So we don't want to compete with private sector as well. Again, if you're online or you're on your phone, *3 to call in. Roger, you have another call?
We do. Let's go to Josh next. Go ahead, Josh. Hello, Josh. You're live on the call.
Sorry, you kind of broke up. So, without a doubt, sports fields affected more than any other industry, correct?
Sir, you're breaking out, and is it possible for you to call back so we have a better signal?
I think he's asked if fairground expansion is going to eliminate the sports fields. Is that the most impacted element of the fairgrounds?
That's correct.
Tim doesn't understand the question in order to answer it, Roger.
Are recreational sports going to be impacted the most? And I think the obvious answer is yes. So what we need to do is have a discussion about how we ensure that we are not displacing the young people in this community. And I don't know if others on this panel want to talk about that. Tim, any alternatives?
Well, hang on. Before we talk, let's not toss that question to Tim, though, because that's not really a Tim answer. That's really going to be a subject that we need to talk about next month when we talk about parks. Because, you know, I didn't jump in, but the nice young lady over here asked about what's going to happen to the sport field that her grandchildren are playing soccer on. Quite frankly, the answer to that is we're not going to ask Tim to solve that problem. We are going to ask our parks director to solve that problem. And then we're going to figure out how that has to work. So quite frankly, to the caller now, to you, ma'am, to a couple of the other questions that have been answered, guys, that's the answer that we're going to be giving to our Parks Advisory Board, and we're going to be giving to our Parks Department based on the meeting next month.
So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to talk about the fairgrounds plan and why we need that. And the next segment is about 4-H, because 4-H is a big user of that fairgrounds. So Guinevere, would you like to talk about the fairgrounds and 4-H?
Folks, we have another segment for questions and answers. I'll be walking the microphone out. Just take a second. Let's hear about the 4-H programming and what this plan allows for. You may keep your arms in the air, but let's move on and hear from Guinevere.
So 4-H is a national program that CSU Extension oversees in Douglas County. We currently provide year-round programming for youth 5 to 18. Our current enrollment in 4-H is 520 youth, and we serve them throughout the year through various educational opportunities that focus on a wide range of things, probably most known for agriculture and livestock. We also have things where we learn about cooking and nutrition. We also, our largest program that we engage youth in is shooting sports, where they learn safe use of firearms and archery. Heritage arts, leadership, STEM programming from robotics to rocketry is also a programs that we offer through our 4-H program. Currently, the current fairgrounds and our relationship is that we, on an annual basis, work with the fair staff to reserve spaces for our programs on an annual calendar, which takes a large effort, and I'm very grateful for fair staff for that. What that looks like is 3 out of the 4 weekends per month every year, we are running programming on fairgrounds properties. 4 out of 5 nights a week throughout the year, we are also running programming for all of those youth that we're serving. We also recruit 155 volunteers to manage those, to develop those mentorships between youth and passionate adults. In addition to 4-H, we also have a Master Gardener program, which is about 153 volunteers. So all of that is space that we could utilize. In the future, we would hope that we would have more space for programming. Regularly, we have to share with other users within the county and people who rent out the space for the fairgrounds. So sometimes we have to move our programming to other locations. And then we currently would like to grow our staffing to accommodate the increase in youth participation, but currently aren't able to. We also would love to have expansive programming that might include a kitchen, more mobile space so that we could accommodate multiple programs at the same time. And that would be our hope for how to grow within the fairgrounds.
Guinevere, thank you for that information. We're going to take some more questions from the audience, but again, I want to make sure everyone understands the purpose of tonight's live town hall is to talk about the plans or the potential plans for the fairgrounds. And okay, we're talking about the fairgrounds. Next month we have George, go ahead.
Okay, hang on, folks. Let's take the questions here. Sir, give us your name, tell us where you're from, and ask your question, give your feedback.
My name is Brandon Kinsey. Two of my kids play in the Raptors baseball program and have for the last 3 years. With the layout plan that you have here, why can you not move the parking situation that you want to use to support this new county fairground to the west side of the freeway to instigate this revenue stream that you want to purposely walk through our downtown to utilize our community services and buildings and opportunities for sales there to draw folks in and maintain the current parking situation for just the trailers and performers so that you mitigate the traffic that all these large rigs and people coming into the fairgrounds create and force them to walk through and purchase from the town of Castle Rock, as well as view the town and use it the way it should be used so that we don't have to eliminate any current spaces.
Okay, not a bad question. I mean, Tim, you know a great deal. You talk to us often about parking. There's not a bad idea, but I think there are some influencing factors there that we already know about.
Yeah, off-site parking doesn't solve the parking problem we have for our patrons. We have a year-round use facility. How are the folks going to get to the facility in inclement weather, in the wintertime, people that have perhaps mobility issues. The users of the facility, so the big rigs that we talk about kind of coming in and out, those are coming in because they're bringing in either livestock or equipment, which means they need to be able to come onto the site and drop off and deliver their goods to the site. A lot of those are also the housing for those animals. We have tried for several years, even trying just during fair, to use remote parking and offer shuttle services to try to bring people in to minimize the impact actually at the grounds with very low utilization because people want to come park at the event venue. But those are things that have been talked about and trying to have some success, but then there also has to be the availability of that property to create the parking areas.
Okay. Can I get to the next guy?
Yep.
All right, thank you, Ben. Appreciate it. Sir, sir, I did...
He let me.
He let you? Okay, all right. Well, sir, give us your name, tell us where you're from, and give us your question. Or
John Rosenthal, I live here in Castle Rock, and I just have a quick question that I think we need to understand about phasing and timing. I know a master plan is kind of your overall view and dream of how do you expand your site. So with this particular, if we're going to go to another meeting about open space, there's going to be a timeline for when fields and things like that could be developed. So with regard to this plan here, is there a timeline in terms of phasing and developing these new parking lots and new buildings?
Tim, you want me to kind of start that off? So, I was asked very pointedly in a meeting that I had with Tim, his boss, the county manager, do we anticipate getting the bulldozers going this summer? And the answer is no. First of all, I wanted to have this meeting and hear what people thought and get the feedback and go back and refine this plan if we need to. But would I like to start working on this concept next year? I really would. In terms of the time, Rome was not built in a day. We do not have the capability of snapping our fingers and all these new buildings jumping out of the ground. So there will be a timeline involved that actually will also be influenced by what we can pay for when. Because if we don't, guys, this is a drawing right now. We've paid for the drawing. We haven't figured out how to pay for the buildings this drawing represents. We haven't even talked about that. But, Tim, let's say that the commissioners, we decide that this summer during our budget process, we want this to start next year. What would a build-out look like, assuming we have the resources, we have the financing to do it one after another?
To complete the master plan within this year, at this point, even with it just being May, is aggressive to get it actually finished. There's a lot of civil work that has to go into making sure that the building location is going to work with retention and detention of water. We wouldn't even start, so at the end of a master plan, and this gentleman kind of alluded to this point, the end of a master plan is a very well captured concept and vision and mission. What it doesn't come with is design documents, construction documents. So once your master plan is complete and you've identified how to phase it, now we go through the process of the actual design documents to get to construction documents. Then those have to go out to a competitive bid process. We have to do bid award with our contractors. Very aggressively, that would honestly take probably the entire year of 2025 to where we were ready to start putting shovels in the dirt. And then, to your point, the gentleman before, I'm sorry, Commissioner, the phasing piece of it's going to be critical. This is a live operating facility, the entire facility, the fairgrounds, the athletic fields. We're going to have to phase that in because we already have reservations and bookings for the next year and for next year that we're going to have to work around and not have an impact on those. I'm quite positive we're not going to cancel our annual county fair because we're in the middle of construction. So phasing is going to be very critical, which are going to make things move very methodically and with purpose so that we don't have negative impacts.
So I really to touch on that real briefly if I could, and I'll just speak for myself as one commissioner. I'm not going to vote to move one speck of dirt until we have enough sports facilities and fields that are as good or better than what we currently have. Okay? I mean, I see all these amazing kids out here that are dedicating their heart and sweat into their sport in addition to going to school, and they have amazing parents. We are not going to let you down. And I mean, I want to brag on my board too. There's a reason we've had 80 town halls. This is a plan, and we're going to continue to refine it until you like it. And again, we're having a lot of discussions about parks and opportunities. 50% of this county is open space and land that we can maybe have some fun with if we can identify the right place. So I just wanted to share that.
Hey, thank you, Abe. We do have another gentleman who, sir, you got a question, you have feedback. Please give us your name and where you're from.
My name is Michael Nielsen. I live here in Castle Rock. Kind of two questions because I didn't get a chance to catch up on the previous sessions. But so question number one is, I'm not a spaceologist, but on the design concept of this, and this kind of goes to Mr. Dean and I can't see your last name. The lady at the far end. When you talk about ingress and egress requirements in and out of the facility, I don't see where the bottleneck is, and I see a lot of wasted space. So when you talk about space that's limited, how have you guys addressed the wasted space that I can tell from just looking at the design here? Second question is to Ms. Nelson, and I'm a Nielsen, is that, and have you guys done any market research on how youth sports versus 4-H has a community impact in the Douglas County area, and how it's relative to the area we're in right now versus outliers from different communities that come to Douglas County because it's the only resource we may have?
Okay. Dean, Cindy, Mark, how would you like to address the first part of it in terms of talking about the use of space behind the master plan? And then Guinevere will come to you, ma'am.
Well, I think Mr. Hallmark said it best. It's a plan. We're concerned about ingress and egress not only of our patrons but of our rodeo contestants and our livestock exhibitors, and we're continuing to work in managing that space appropriately. And at this point in the plan, I think we've tried to address that. But as Commissioner Layden said, it is a plan, and it'll continue to be refined as we move forward. I don't know if you guys want to say anything more. Great. I will turn it over to Guinevere then.
So Guinevere, economic impact. We know what 4-H does. Do we have those numbers? Have you had a chance to look at those numbers on the economic impact of youth sports?
I would not say that I have had a chance to look at the economic impact of youth sports. I do know that the impact of 4-H on youth throughout their lifetime is pretty substantial in terms of overall success for a lifetime and civic engagement.
George, Roger has communicated with us. We'll take questions till 7:05 because of the system, and then we'll wrap it up.
Thank you, ma'am. So, Colin, you and I actually had an opportunity to have a discussion today. And, Colin, go ahead and tell us, give your full name. Tell us, everybody, where you're from and also the organization that you work for that compels you to wear green from time to time.
My name's Colin Cashone. Many of you in the room know me as the Director of Baseball for Raptors Athletics. I am also the Vice President in charge of baseball for all of the Rapo Youth League. Basically, I cover over 400 kids playing baseball in Castle Rock, and I cover over 3,000 kids playing baseball in Douglas County.
And so, Colin,
we're the largest youth baseball league in the entire state.
Awesome. Okay. And so, Colin, you shared a figure with me that you guys have already done some of this work as your work as a leader in AYL. What did you told me something like 100,000 people go through the ball fields that are currently at the fairgrounds.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
That out
basically, we were asked how many unique visits, how many times does a person go to the fairgrounds, to bring their kid to a practice, bring their kid to a game, those types of things. How many times per week does that happen? We actually sat down and did the entire math, and we came up with, between our baseball and our football programs, this does not include Rapids soccer, we came up with just under 100,000 unique visits to the fairgrounds every year. just between our baseball and football. There's also a national stat that says those types of unique visits to a complex or facility like this typically brings in $8 worth of revenue per person. You know, I can tell you my own son, we get done with practice, he's like, hey, we need to go get food. We don't go home and cook. He wants to go to Chipotle all the time. But it's at $8 a person, 100,000 people, that's $800,000 of revenue that our programs, just being able to use the fairgrounds, brings in to the town.
All right.
And to the community.
All right. Thanks, Don. Appreciate it. So that pretty much addresses that second half of your question, and we still have some more time for more questions. I had folks line up. Tell you what, Mark. Let's hear from Mark. He's a. Yeah, he's.
I should please stand up for a minute.
Yeah.
Introduce myself.
So Mark's another leader in the AYL program, and our sons played 6-year-old football together. So, Mark, give everybody your full name, where you're from, and.
I'm Mark Steinke, and I'm a Castle Rock resident. I've lived in Castle Rock for 18 years, and for 17 of those years, I have volunteered for youth sports organizations, from the Dolphins to the Cougars, which both of those organizations became the Raptors. That's kind of the origin of that, which has a 50-year legacy going back through Douglas County. So, as you know, the president of Raptors Athletics, obviously this is a huge deal to us. I got to tell you too, my son also played with Tim Hallmark. Our sons played together. So, and for everybody on the board and council, thank you guys for being here. The first thing I'll say is that as a Castle Rock resident and as a member of Raptors Athletics, we've always had a great relationship with the fairgrounds. We've worked with them in the past on things, and we value that. We truly do value the fairgrounds. I love, Laura, your points on the frontierness, and that's part of the draw of Castle Rock that's brought us into that. So I'm all behind that too, and we're really behind these guys. And I understand they need to grow and they need to improve, and I love that idea because that's what we do out here in Castle Rock. Obviously, our issue is, as you can see, we have so many concerned citizens. These are adults. Listen, Colin didn't get a chance to tell his story. He's got a great story. Colin would be over in the fairgrounds in one of your units showing his pig for 4-H, and then he'd go out, change his clothes, and go play baseball on the baseball field. Yep. I mean, that's the kind of legacy we've got, and it's a partnership that we want to enjoy in. Obviously, our point is displacing, even for a season or 2 seasons, kids out of our program, meaning that if we had to wait for these fields to be replaced, it would decimate us. I mean, probably 60% of all of our stuff that we do is in the fairgrounds. And so half of our program would just be cut that quickly. So that's where our concern is. We're citizens. We want to be part of the group. We want to support the fairgrounds, but without some sort of plan to be able to place because our program's not about us. It's not about Colin, right? It's not about any of these parents that have stood up. It's these guys. It's these kids that are now adults in our community, right? I know there's some out there, because I see some kids I coached out here that are now adults that are, they aren't even homeowners yet, but they're adults that are in our community, and they're concerned about this too because they grew up on those fields. So that's where our concern is. We're all behind you guys, Tim. You know that, and but we can't go forward, or we can't support anything without some sort of notice that we know our kids are going to be taken care of.
Absolutely. Understood.
Right.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Roger, correct me if I'm wrong. It looks like we do have more time for questions. We do have folks that have been waiting. Come on forward. All right, sir. Go ahead and give us your name, where you're from, and tell us what your question or comment is.
Yeah, my name is Corey Abbott. I'm a resident of Parker, and I think that one thing we'd like is to just reiterate is the timing issue here. I don't know anybody who would let 100,000 families in an active construction zone, and to actively remove all of these parks from the Parks and Rec system for that long would severely impact the program. And I think that's one thing you need to consider as we look at alternatives and moving kids, is that you're talking about an entire class of kids that have to go play baseball somewhere else, and we don't want to do that. we don't want to take our kids and run them in another AYL league. So we would love to keep with the Raptors. We would love to keep this program going. And we just hope that you would think about the timing of this project, because this looks like a multi-year project. You're not going to get this done in one summer or one winter around here. So we just hope that you'd take that into consideration as you're looking at the plan.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Before we get to another question here in the conference room, Roger, phone question.
Let's hear from Laura. Laura, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Laura, and I grew up in Douglas County in my late 50s, so I've been here a long time. And it sounded to me very much like there's an impasse between, is the fairground still for agriculture, or is it rec use? That's my comment, and I think that's the problem that I'm hearing the most. I was very surprised to hear all of the rec people upset about this, because as a Douglas County resident that is truly agriculture business based, I was thrilled to hear that there's going to be some money put into the fairground. So that was surprising to me. My question is, bringing it back around to it being agriculture use, what is the increase in number in stalls? Because that does really help if we do have to evacuate our horses for fire. Those of us who live rurally would love to have more stalls available for fire evacuation and emergencies.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's break that question into two answers. Dean, I wonder if you could talk, first question being, is the fairgrounds agriculture, is it athletics? Share your ideas on that.
Well, I certainly think that Douglas County Fair and Rodeo has been in existence for a very long time, and we want to be a part of the community. We feel a responsibility to educate and continue to promote the agricultural underpinnings in the Western heritage that is Douglas County. I'm excited to be here and share and listen as well, and I think there's been some great things talked about. I don't know if the second question was coming to me or if Mr. Hallmark might be better.
I would like Mr. Hallmark to take that one, because, Tim, we've talked about this. We've dealt with this in the light of the Marshall Fire and what happened where there's so many animals did have to be evacuated there, and we kind of rewarmed our own planning here in the county. So can you address large animal emergency evacuation and the fairgrounds role?
So we do play a very significant role in emergency animal evacuation. We don't have a final actual count of what our horse stall count will be, because we haven't got into the details of the facility planning. However, it will be substantially more than what we currently have, and also in a more appropriate, safer conditions than some of our old barns that we currently have that we use for that.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Sir, you're up next. Can I ask you to give us your name, where you're from, and say what you want to say?
My name's Travis Mitchell. Live here in Castle Rock. Grew up in Parker. I've just got a couple things to get off my chest here. Maybe reiterate a little bit of the same emotion that Mark had there. But I just really want to say that when I walked in here, if you didn't know what you're looking at, this looks like a little microcosm of Castle Rock. But it's not. This is Castle Rock. And the kids in this room are the future of Castle Rock. I grew up in Parker. My wife grew up here in Castle Rock. I played AYL sports. And my grandkids will probably play AYL sports if we're still here, right? So my point is, this affects the community at large. And the people in this room are the ones that are affected right now. But this really is your constituency, and this master plan serves an event that is put on by your constituency. It is totally different. I think everyone in here would feel a lot better if there was more than just a plan for fields. It's two totally different things. And I know that's kind of been said, but I think that is going to be the number one thing that is going to get your constituency to support this, is if we have more than a plan, more than a meeting on the 27th, right? It's got to be something concrete, and anyone that is from here knows that nothing here is concrete until it's done. Everything moves slow here. We do not, when you look around, there's not a whole lot of place to develop. So where's it going to be? When is it going to happen? Those are the questions that need to be answered.
Okay.
And so one more quick question. on the parking garage, someone said $35,000 a parking space. Well, what about the projected revenue of this master plan, and is that ever going to be made available to the public? Where's the funds going to? Because it seems like if your dream comes true, there's going to be plenty of money. So, thank you.
No, thank you, sir. Well, I don't know if we have metrics on the revenue that we would get from this plan, other than there's a common sense element that we believe this plan will generate additional revenue to offset the inherent costs of the fair. Golly, Tim, have we gone very far down that rabbit hole, though?
We haven't gone very far down the rabbit hole. Currently, so just a reminder, this is a complex that operates year-round. It's not just fair. The master plan is addressing the year-round use and events, not just fair. Fair is just the one event that Douglas County, in partnership with the Fair Board and Fair Foundation, that we put on.
At time. But if you'd like to hang
the
out,
revenues that are generated in this facility year-round essentially cover the operating costs of the facility, so that there's not an impact on the taxpayers, and that's all of us sitting in this room, myself included. Projections of increased revenues, will they increase? Yeah, they'll increase. They'll increase by at least enough to make sure that we continue to operate the facility as efficiently as possible and keeping that impact off of the citizens.
We are at a wrap-up. Abe, would you like to take us into the wrap-up?
George, thank you. I'd like to thank all the kids that are here and all the parents for the discussion. You did a great job, and I'm sorry that we don't have more time to talk about this, but we do. This is just the beginning of the conversation, not the end. Somebody asked about what the annual revenue is for youth sports, and I do know the answer to that. That's about $39.7 billion nationally. So, and I know that from my bank statements with my 3 kids, but it's a lot. And so, for me, it's just this county is so special. We're not a county of 6,000 anymore. We're a county of 375,000 people. I'm not an either-or person. I'm a both-and. I think we can have the best county fair in the entire state, and I think we can have the best youth rec sports. So huge thanks to AYL and Raptors and everyone for being here. Really appreciate you.
Well, I will echo my colleague in saying thank you all for coming tonight. It is my firm belief that you being here, you sharing your views, you asking your very good questions has helped, number one, help us plan for the fairgrounds, but more specifically, I appreciate hearing your voices tonight in order to help us continue to plan moving forward. Again, I'd like to reiterate, next month, June 27th, 6 p.m., right here in the hearing room, we're going to have a town hall pertaining to parks, open space, trails, and historic preservation, and some of the planning that we have done there. And I, for one, would very much appreciate hearing your voice then and sharing in that conversation. But thank you all for coming out. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone joining on the phone and online. And Commissioner, if you'd like to take us out.
Thank you, Commissioner Teal. I represent the Highlands Ranch District, and I have been working on a project to bring soccer fields and sports fields and a pool to that area, but it's not ready yet to bring to the public. But just know that we are having these conversations. I think what tonight highlights is what the 3 of us do every week, and it's the balance of what our community needs. We have a very vibrant fairgrounds 4-H program. We have people who rent our fairgrounds every week. week. I get phone calls from citizens saying, I need an event and I can never get into the fairgrounds. So those are the kinds of issues that we are trying to address. This is the very first blush of looking at this master plan. This is our introduction to the public about what it is. We don't have the answers to your other questions because we're still at the very, very beginning. And that's why we want to understand what is the purpose of expanding the fairgrounds and what else do we need to do to keep that balance so that everybody gets something of what they need. And it's what we do every week is find the balance for what is best for our community. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being great citizens of this great county. Good night and God bless all of you.
All right, thank you. On behalf of Douglas County, we appreciate you joining us tonight. If we didn't get to your question, we invite you to submit feedback at douglas.co.us/town hall. We hope you'll join us on June 27th. And there are staff members with comment cards here in the back if you'd like to leave a question or a comment. Thank you very much. Good night.